Let me ask you something that might make you sit up a little straighter in your chair. Did you know that after age 75, just 5 health risks account for nearly all serious threats to our longevity? It's a startling truth, but here's the good news. Every single one of them is something we can take control of starting today. Now, I'm not here to scare you. Heaven knows we've earned our years and deserve to enjoy them. But I do want to share what I've learned after decades of watching friends, neighbors, and yes, even family face these challenges head-on. The difference between those who let life happen to them and those who take charge. It's not luck, it's knowledge. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Think back to your younger years. Maybe you remember when smoking was advertised as healthy or when seatbelts were optional. We've lived through enough changes to know that sometimes the smallest adjustments make the biggest difference. That's why today's conversation isn't about drastic overhauls or impossible goals. It's about understanding what's really standing between us and more good years, because I don't know about you, but I've got too many sunrises left to watch, too many grandkids' birthdays left to celebrate, to leave this to chance. So let's start with the first and most silent of these risks. Something my dear friend Carlos didn't see coming until it was nearly too late. He was always active, still mowing his lawn at 78, when one day he just couldn't. Turns out, his heart had been sending him signals for years, tiny whispers he'd written off as normal aging. That's the thing about cardiovascular disease. It doesn't always roar like a heart attack. Sometimes it creeps in like fog over a lake, so gradual you don't notice until you're lost in it. But here's what the doctors told him, and what I want you to hear loud and clear. Even at 80, 85, 90 years old, your body responds to care. It's never too late to start listening to what yours is trying to tell you. Now you might be thinking, but my doctor says my blood pressure is just part of getting older. And I'll tell you the same thing my cardiologist told me after my little wake-up call last year. Normal for your age doesn't mean safe for your life. And that brings us to the heart of today's conversation, because while we can't turn back time, we can absolutely change how our story unfolds from here. Now let's talk about that silent thief of independence, cardiovascular disease. You know, when my neighbor Evelyn, sharp as a tack at 82, started forgetting where she put her keys, everyone just chalked it up to age. But here's what most folks don't realize, those little moments of confusion. Sometimes they're not about memory at all. They're about blood flow. Your brain literally not getting what it needs to stay sharp. And that's the insidious thing about heart health as we age. We blame so much on getting older, when really it's our circulation whispering for help. I remember my own wake-up call, getting winded, walking to the mailbox when just last year I could have walked to the end of the block without breaking a sweat. My doctor explained it like this. Imagine your arteries are garden hoses. Over time, mineral deposits and wear can make them stiffen, just like an old hose left out in the sun. But here's the hopeful part. You can still improve the water pressure, so to speak, no matter how old those pipes are. Simple changes like adding more leafy greens. Spinach became my new best friend. Or taking a 5-minute walk every hour can make a bigger difference than you'd think. And let's talk about salt, not the kind you shake at the dinner table, though watch that too, but the hidden sodium lurking in canned soups, deli meats, even breakfast cereals. My friend Raj, at 79, cut his processed food intake in half, and within 3 months his doctor took him off one of his blood pressure medications. That's real power. But here's what really keeps me up at night, the second big risk that sneaks up on so many of us. Falls. You might think, I've been walking just fine for 7 decades, why worry now? But here's the hard truth. After 75, one bad fall can change everything. My brother-in-law, Ted, was still golfing twice a week at 76 when he tripped over a loose rug in his hallway. Just like that. A broken hip, surgery, and 6 months later, he was gone. Not from the fall itself, but from all the complications that followed. That's why I've become borderline obsessive about fall prevention, and you should too. Start with your feet, literally. Those old slippers with the smooth soles. Retirement home for them today. Get shoes with real grip, even indoors. And lighting. Oh, lighting is everything. I installed motion sensor nightlights along my hallway after reading that most falls happen between the bedroom and bathroom at night. But the most powerful thing you can do? Strength training. Now, before you picture some sweaty gym rat, hear me out. I'm talking about 5 minutes of chair stands every morning while your coffee brews, or holding onto the kitchen counter and lifting one heel at a time while you wait for the microwave. The stronger your legs, the quicker you can catch yourself if you stumble. And balance exercises. Try standing on one foot with a chair nearby to grab while you brush your teeth. It feels silly at first, but so did seatbelts when they first came out, and look how that turned out. The key with all of this? Consistency beats intensity every time when you're our age. 5 minutes daily does more than an hour once a month. And if you're thinking, but I've never exercised, let me tell you about my friend Lorraine. Started her first strength routine at 83 after a close call in her bathroom. And at 86, she's still tending her rose garden without a walker. In sight. That's the kind of future we're working toward here. Because here's what they don't tell you in those glossy retirement brochures. Getting old is inevitable, but becoming frail? That's optional. And that brings us to the third danger on our list, one that's especially cruel because it steals your joy before it takes your health. But we'll get to that in just a bit, because first, I want to make sure you're still with me. Nod your head if you've ever brushed off being short of breath as just aging. See? That's exactly what I used to do too. But now, you know better, and knowing is half the battle. The other half? Taking that first small step, literally towards stronger tomorrows. Now let's address the danger nobody wants to talk about at Bridge Club: loneliness. You might be surprised to hear that chronic isolation is as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, but when my friend Miriam lost her husband after 53 years of marriage, I watched how grief turned into something even more dangerous. She stopped going to her book club, skipped her granddaughter's piano recital, and within 6 months, she was in the hospital with what the doctors called failure to thrive. Here's the hard truth. Our bodies weren't meant to wither alone. Social connection isn't just nice to have, it's as vital as your daily medications. But I get it, making new friends at our age feels about as easy as threading a needle with arthritic hands. That's why I want to share what worked for Miriam and what's worked for me. Start small. Instead of waiting for someone to call you, be the caller. Set a reminder every Tuesday morning to phone just one person, an old coworker, your niece, that nice woman from your church who moved to assisted living last year. And if phone calls feel daunting, try this trick I learned from a 92-year-old at my senior center. Keep note cards and stamps by your favorite chair. Sending 3 short notes a week takes less time than one episode of Wheel of Fortune. And I can't tell you how many friendships I've rekindled through that simple habit. Now, if you're thinking, but my kids are busy, my friends are gone, and my neighbors aren't like the ones I had in the 60s, let me introduce you to the magic of intergenerational connections. When I started volunteering as a lunchroom helper at the elementary school down the street, just 2 hours a week, those second graders gave me more energy than my vitamin B12 shots. They don't care that I walk with a cane or that my jokes are older than their grandparents. They just light up when I remember their names or praise their dinosaur drawings. And here's something they don't put in the medical journals. Laughter shared with others does something miraculous to our blood pressure that laughter alone just can't match. Before we move to the next life-saving strategy, I want to pause and say, if this is resonating with you, if you're nodding along thinking someone finally gets it, then do us both a favor and hit that subscribe button. You see, this channel is more than just videos. It's become a community of folks like us who believe our best years shouldn't be stuck in the rearview mirror. When you subscribe, you're not just getting more tips like these, You're joining thousands of other savvy seniors who exchange recipes in the comments, remind each other to take their calcium, and even organize local meetups. Just last month, subscribers in Cincinnati started a walking club that begins every morning with what they call the knee check, 5 simple stretches that have kept half their members out of joint replacement surgery. That's the power of sticking together. Now let's tackle the 4th threat, one that creeps up so slowly most doctors miss it until it's too late: malnutrition. And no, I'm not talking about starving. I'm talking about the tea and toast syndrome that took down my spry 88-year-old Aunt Dorothy. She ate enough, but when her doctor ran tests after a minor fall, they found her body was running on empty: low protein, critically low vitamin D, barely any potassium. Here's what changed her trajectory, switching from 3 big meals to 6 mini meals packed with what her nutritionist called the longevity trinity: protein, healthy fats, and fiber. She keeps hard-boiled eggs and avocado slices in her fridge now, snacks on almonds instead of crackers, and makes what she calls senior smoothies with Greek yogurt and frozen berries. The transformation? Within 3 months, she went from needing a walker to joining a Tai Chi class. But here's the kicker. Malnutrition isn't just about what you eat, but how you eat. If you've noticed food doesn't taste like it used to, blame those taste buds retiring. Try this trick from my friend Luis. Eat with colorful plates. Red and yellow make food look more appealing. Add extra herbs and spices, your heart-healthy secret weapons, and never eat alone when you can help it. Studies show we consume 30% more nutrients when we share meals with others. Another reason that book club potluck might be the healthiest hour of your week. And this brings us to the 5th and most misunderstood danger, one I resisted acknowledging until my own hospital scare last winter. But I'll save that revelation for our next conversation because it's going to challenge everything we've been taught about taking it easy in our golden years. For now, think about this. When was the last time you had a real belly laugh with someone, made a new friend under 30, or looked at your plate and thought, this isn't just food, it's fuel for the life I want to keep living? Those questions matter more than you know. Let's talk about the 5th danger, the one I was most stubborn about accepting until my wake-up call last winter: sedentary living. Now, before you roll your eyes and say, I'm 80 years old, I've earned my rest, hear me out. There's a world of difference between resting and rusting, and I learned this the hard way after pneumonia landed me in the hospital for a week. The doctor told me something that changed everything. The fastest way to lose your independence isn't through disease, it's through disuse. You see, after age 75, we can lose up to 5% of our muscle mass every decade if we don't actively fight back. But here's the hopeful part. Studies show even 90-year-olds in nursing homes can rebuild strength with simple resistance exercises. My physical therapist, a no-nonsense woman named Rosa, who reminded me of my old home economics teacher, put it this way: your body is like a bank account. Every movement is a deposit, every hour sitting is a withdrawal. So I started what I call my commercial break workouts. During every TV ad, I do seated leg lifts or arm circles with soup cans. It sounds trivial, but after 6 months, I could lift my carry-on into the overhead bin again to visit my grandkids. The secret? Consistency over intensity. My friend Henry at 87 swears by his 3-door policy. He makes sure to walk through his front door at least 3 times a day, even if it's just to check the mailbox or chat with a neighbor. That simple habit kept him out of a wheelchair after his stroke rehab. But here's what no one tells you about staying active later in life. It's not just about your body. There's a powerful brain connection, too. When researchers scanned the brains of seniors who started walking regularly, they found something astonishing. Their hippocampus, the memory center, actually grew larger, reversing age-related shrinkage by 1 to 2 years. I experienced this firsthand when I joined the Silver Sneakers walking group at our local mall. Not only did my arthritis pain decrease, but I started remembering names and dates like I hadn't in a decade. And here's a tip I learned from a 94-year-old marathon walker. If you struggle with stiffness, try dancing in place to oldies music for 5 minutes before your main activity. The rhythm tricks your brain into moving more fluidly. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but I have bad knees, a bum, hip, chronic pain. So did my friend Grace, who discovered aquatic therapy at her community pool. The water supports 90% of your body weight while providing resistance, and she went from barely walking to doing water aerobics 3 times a week. The point isn't to run marathons, it's to find your version of movement and do it consistently. This brings me to an uncomfortable truth about all 5 of these mortality risks. They feed off each other in vicious cycles. Loneliness leads to inactivity, which worsens heart health, which saps your appetite, which accelerates muscle loss. You see how this goes. But here's the beautiful flip side. Improvement in one area creates positive ripples everywhere else. When my neighbor Mr. Chen started attending the senior lunch program, addressing isolation and nutrition, he met a widow who invited him to her gardening club, physical activity, and social connection. Within months, his doctor reduced his blood pressure medication. That's the power of what gerontologists call the integrated approach, treating your lifestyle as one interconnected system rather than isolated problems. Now, let me share something personal. My turning point came during that hospital stay when a young nurse said something that cut through all my excuses. "Mrs. Wilkins, your medical chart says you're 78, but your muscle tone says you've been living like you're 98. That stung, but it also sparked something in me. I realized I'd been confusing acting my age with surrendering to every stereotype about aging, so I started small, 5 minutes of stretching every morning to my favorite big band music, switching from my recliner to a stability ball for 15 minutes a day to engage my core, even just standing up during phone calls. The changes were gradual, but 6 months later, I could get up from the floor without help, a skill that might just save my life someday. As we prepare to wrap up this important conversation in our final segment, I want you to think about this. What's one small thing you've stopped doing in the past year that you used to enjoy? Maybe it's gardening because bending hurts, or playing with your grandkids because you get tired. Hold that thought, because in our last installment, I'm going to show you how to reclaim those joys safely and share the simple 4-word mantra that keeps me moving even on days when my arthritis flares up. But more importantly, I'll reveal the surprising common thread connecting all 5 of these mortality risks, a thread that, when pulled, can unravel years of damage and help you rewrite what's possible in your 8th, 9th, even 10th decade of life. So here's the revelation that ties all 5 dangers together. They thrive on resignation. The moment we say, "That's just what happens at my age," we hand them power. But when my friend Beatrice turned 80, she made a radical decision. She stopped calling things age-related and started calling them habit-related. That simple shift changed everything. Her knee pain, not old age, it was from sitting too much. Her forgetfulness, not senior moments, but from dehydration and lack of mental stimulation. This is the 4-word mantra I promised you. Aging explains, but doesn't excuse. Your body still responds to care, no matter how many candles were on your last birthday cake. Let me prove it to you. Think back to that activity you miss, the one that came to mind earlier. For me, it was knitting without my hands cramping. Instead of giving it up, I tried 2 changes: soaking my hands in warm water first and switching to larger needles. Small adjustments, big difference. Last winter, I made scarves for all my great-grandkids. That's what this journey is about, not adding years to your life, but life to your years. Now, let's weave together everything we've covered. Heart health improves when you move more. Movement becomes easier with proper nutrition. Eating well tastes better when shared with others. Social connections flourish when you're healthy, enough to engage, and all of it protects your brain. See how beautifully this works? Start anywhere. Take a water aerobics class, and you'll meet friends while strengthening your heart. Join a potluck, and you'll socialize while discovering healthy recipes. The key is to intercept the downward spiral and reverse it into an upward cycle. My 85-year-old yoga instructor puts it perfectly. We don't stop moving because we age. We age because we stop moving. Here's my final challenge for you. This week, choose one tiny victory in each category. Swap out one salty snack for walnuts, heart health. Tape down those throw rugs, fall prevention. Call an old friend, loneliness, defense. Add protein powder to your oatmeal, nutrition. And stand during one TV show, activity. Small steps create unstoppable momentum. Now, if this conversation has made you rethink what's possible in your 70s, 80s, or beyond, do something important. Hit that like button so more seniors find this video, and subscribe, because next week I'm sharing the 10-second balance test that predicts longevity, plus a foolproof strength routine you can do in your recliner. But more than that, leave a comment with your personal tiny victory goal. Maybe it's walk to the mailbox without stopping, or host a monthly game night. Your words might inspire someone else's breakthrough. Together, we're proving that the last chapters can be the richest, not despite our age, but because of all the wisdom we've earned along the way. Until next time, remember what my favorite centenarian neighbor told me on her 101st birthday. The secret isn't living longer, it's loving longer. Keep loving your life, my friend, and it will keep loving you back. Now go show the world what 75 plus really looks like.